Hello everyone, my name is Protesilaos, also known as Prot. In this video I want to do a status update for my channel and talk to you about the state of affairs, what I am doing now and what is my plan for the immediate future. So what I have in front of me here is Emacs. Basically what I will be talking about is Emacs and my current window manager, which, as you may already know by having reviewed my backlog, is the binary space partitioning window manager, BSPWM. I have a bespoke session centered around this window manager, and I want to talk to you about these issues. So let me start with BSPWM. If you have read my .emacs and have checked my backlog, you may have noticed that for a while, for about the last 2 months, I had switched away from BSPWM and was using XFCE, where I disabled all the key bindings that the window manager defines, the XFWM defines. That's the XFCE window manager. My thinking for that, my rationale for that was to assign the super key and every other possible key in some Emacs function in order to improve my productivity, because Emacs is my main programming or writing interface. It's what I do most of the time when I am on the computer. So I wanted to maximize the efficiency of Emacs, and this meant having to face some trade-offs, because my BSPWM setup was heavily reliant on the super key. Anyhow, my setup of course works. This is Debian stable, so even if I leave it as it is for 6 months, it will still work as it did. Nothing changes in this short amount of time in Debian terms. Anyhow, so fast forward to last week or so, where I discovered that in Linux, GNU/Linux, you can enable the hyper key even if your keyboard does not have one. So I use a standard keyboard, the US QWERTY, nothing special about it, and I was able to do this by writing a file called xmodmap and making some changes to my BSPWM-RC and some relevant files. Here is the backlog. Maybe we can have a look. Okay, it's a very detailed commit, so I don't want to read the whole thing. So yeah, it documents everything. It explains what I am trying to do, and basically the idea is that by enabling the hyper key, I was able to rebind every action that BSPWM previously assigned to the super key. I was able to rebind it to the hyper key. So this now means effectively that hyper and some combination of keys refers to a BSPWM command, and then super, control, and meta, else alt, are used for Emacs. Just to say that in Emacs, the way I use super is to create more convenient aliases for common commands. For example, if you want to open the directory editor in another window, the default for that is Control X4 and then D. Control X4 and then D, and it will prompt you for a directory. Because this is an action I do quite regularly, I cannot continuously press Control X4 and then D. This will injure my hand. So instead of that, I am doing Super, Shift, and D. It's much easier to press that. And if you want to open it in the current window, so Control XD, it's just Super and D. The same concept applies for buffers, so instead of Control XB, it's Super B. Instead of Control X4B, it's Super Shift B. The same for files, etc., etc. For closing windows, instead of Control X0, it's just Super 0. Instead of Control X3, it's just Super 3. The same for 2, the same for 1, and so on and so forth. So this way I am able to combine the best of both worlds I am able to use my minimalist, my custom, my heavily customized window manager, and also be able to embed Emacs inside of it without sacrificing any of the productivity that I have been able to incorporate in my .emacs. Okay, so I guess that covers it for the BSPWM part. Of course, if you have checked my backlog, you will already know that I have produced a book, a free/libre book on BSPWM, which explains how you too can reproduce my custom desktop session on Debian 10 Buster. This book, of course, works. The code for this book, I was prescient enough to use a separate repo for that. So it contains a snapshot of my .files in that repo. The book, by the way, is called prots dots for Debian. You can find it on my website. I will also link in the description. And the code that is referenced in that book is in a repository on my GitLab page called code for PDFD, prots dots for Debian. Anyhow, the code and the book will work as intended, but my .files, which is also something I explain in my in the README of my .files repo, will undergo lots and lots of breaking changes, because chances are that I will be removing Vim. Actually, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the directory structure. This is the current directory structure. And the way I look at it right now, okay, but I am not sure, this is just tentative. I have to review this and put some thought into it. But the way I look at it now, this is basically gone. This is basically gone. This is basically gone. So you see there are lots of things that I will change. I have to review, reevaluate whether I need Xterm. I think I will. I think I will keep it. It's good to have a solid and solid fallback that works. I will keep Tmax, but if you check my Tmax conf, I won't go into it anyhow now. It was it was meant to work with Vim. So many of the keys and the metaphors are Vim inspired. So I will probably keep Tmax, but I will make it so that it works better with Emacs style bindings and follows Emacs conventions. The same will apply for, I won't delete these actually right now. The same will apply for BSPWM. Let's have a look. For all the key bindings in SXHKDRC and SXHKDRC BSPC. So these are two files that correspond to the hotkey daemon. It's the program that handles key bindings in BSPWM. You have to check my backlog for that. I have a very informative video on how you can write key bindings for this program. Suffice to say, it is the best program and the smartest syntax for defining key bindings that I have ever used. It's very nice, but anyhow, I will probably be making changes to these again to make them Emacs friendly or aligned with the Emacs keys and the things of that nature. So there will be lots of breaking changes, as I explain in the README of my .files. So README over here. Do not track my .files directly. This is something that has always been the case. This is not new. I recommend you use my book. The book is free of charge and freed from traditional copyright restrictions. So there is no reason for you not to use it. There is no impediment whatsoever. So this is it about BSPWM. I believe that's all for now. So yeah, but the next thing is that I will be continuing to do videos on Emacs because my BSPWM setup is largely complete, and this is why I also wrote the book. There is not much to add to it. Everything works apart from the customizations that I will make to make it compatible with Emacs. The core functionality is there and will remain in place probably until the next Debian stable. So we have time for that, don't worry. it's probably another 22 months until Debian 11 Bullseye. So I will be continuing to do videos on Emacs. I have been working a lot on refining, adding lots of polish to my accessible themes for Emacs. In case you don't know, I have a couple of themes called the Modus themes. What you are looking at right now is called Modus Vivendi. It's the light theme. And the other one, Modus Operandi. And the other one, which is the dark theme, is called Modus Vivendi. And I have been making lots and lots of changes to improve the UI, to add more colors, to improve the meaning and the context in which these colors are used. I have lots of additions. Again, I have a video on this, but if you check my backlog, lots of my previous videos on Emacs, and if you pay attention to details, you will notice that my themes have evolved considerably, even since the last, at least 2 videos ago. Not the very last video, but at least the penultimate, the one before. They have changed a lot, and I will be continuing to making some tweaks and refinements to them, because my intention is by the end of this month or the beginning of the next, so probably next week, the beginning of next week, I will submit a pull request to the, what's it called, the repo, Melpa, to the Melpa repo on GitHub. I will submit a pull request so that they may consider my themes as a package that can be included in Melpa. They ask for a lot of things, a lot of bureaucratic checks, which are necessary. I'm not against them, but I have not done this process before, so I will have to read a lot on how to do it. This might take some time. The review process might take some time, so I cannot say when my themes will be available through the Melpa repositories. In the meantime, if you check my .emacs, which I will also link to in the description, there is a snippet of code which was offered to me by another user. I also referenced the name of that user and the link to their repo in context. Anyhow, there is a snippet of code over there that tells you how you can use Quelpa to use my themes right away. Quelpa basically allows you to specify any repository and use that as a repo, even though that repository does not correspond to a Melpa package. And the syntax for it is it's using use package, so the declarative thing that you can also use with Melpa packages. So nothing special about it. Yeah, some of the, maybe I could showcase some of the changes that I have made. Just the highlights, not everything, but some of the obvious ones that you can see here. This is a setting, a variable. So if you enable this variable, I'm not sure which one it is right now, ask me in the comments or contact me, I can tell you. But basically, if you enable this variable, it can tell you, it can highlight the differences on a line. So you can see that T and class have changed, and it's easier to tell it that way. They use different colors. So for example, my themes account for this. It's easier to be able to find those refined changes. Some other things, when you are moving in a git diff, the hunks, so the hunk is this thing here, the hunks will have a better UI so you know where you are. Maybe if I can decrease the size a bit so that you can see what I'm doing, because so you can see they have the way you move, they have the change into bold, and the affected area changes background. So that's basically it. Another thing that you can check is, okay, obviously the colors may not be perfectly representative in this video, so you have to use them on your computer to see, but some subtle differences is that this color is the main foreground color, so in this case this is pure black, whereas here it is a shade of green, a dark shade of green, and a dark shade of red. These are subtle nuances. You will appreciate them when you use the theme, and you can see these fine touches. Other things that I have added, as you can see over here, You can see this part over here. So this is the so-called cool background, and on top of it is the cool foreground, and this one is the warm equivalent. So a warm background and a warm foreground. So I have the neutral foregrounds and backgrounds, so the grays, or the sorts of grays, white and black. And then I have the warm ones, which is for use in specific contexts where you need to signify some kind of contextual difference, but you don't want to use an accent color, so like red, cyan, magenta, etc., etc. You want to use a foreground color that has a subtle touch to it, so this is how you would do it. Maybe I could showcase this. Do I have, let's have some, I'm not sure what I want to check for now. Maybe if we have, let's think about this for a bit. Do I have, okay, yes, let's come here so you can see the doc strings. For example, if you check my backlog on transpose, so this is something I did recently, I think a few videos ago, the documentation string used a bright cyan color. And when you have a code like this one that has, so this is a documentation string, and this whole thing is a documentation string, and so on, the whole experience is just too bright, too much cyan, and you don't really need that. You want color to be used more considerably, and you want it to be more pronounced, the effect to be more pronounced on what you should focus on. So now if you, as I said, the colors may not be fully representative because of the recording software, but now it's easier to tell that this one, for example, is a reference to a function. It's easier to tell those things, but also you can read this just fine. And furthermore, the code, the syntax of the code has the colors appropriately, defined appropriately. My themes, I'm not sure if I already mentioned this, but the overarching objective of my themes is to conform with the accessibility standard called WCAG AAA, and this is a standard that concerns color contrast. So it measures the perceived luminance between the background and the foreground colors. So what I am always trying to achieve, whenever you see two colors, so a background and a foreground, the contrast between them should be at minimum 7:1. So this is the highest accessibility standard, and I am trying to always conform with that standard. Of course, some color combinations have a much higher contrast than that. For example, black on white or white on black, it's 21:1. But okay, that's the point. Another side effect when you are trying to achieve accessibility is that you avoid the rainbow effect, where every color is very intense, and you have lots of intense colors competing for your attention. If you check this, for example, you will see that it is fairly minimalist, even though it uses lots of colors. No color here tries to call for your attention too much, and more importantly, you don't have 2 or 3 or 4 colors trying to call for your attention. So it's a more subdued, a more relaxed kind of syntax highlighting. Obviously, the dark theme is a bit more intense. I will switch to the dark theme in a bit, and this is because the human eye perceives color easier when it is cast on a dark background, and this is because it perceives luminance better. Anyhow, this is a very technical topic. Let's not delve into that because we will stay here for another hour. The point is that on a light background, it's more difficult to discern color than on a dark background. That's the general idea. Of course, it depends on the color, but that's the very general idea. So the idea with the themes is to have them to submit a pull request to Melpa by the end of this month, beginning of the next, and hopefully they will not take too long. So maybe sometime in November, perhaps December at the very latest, you will be able to have them on Melpa. I'm not sure if I want to show you anything else concerning the theme before I switch to the dark one. Yeah, basically that's the idea with the theme. So I will switch to the dark one. Now please be careful now, because the dark one is pure black, so the background is pure black. So make sure to tweak the brightness of your monitor, adjust it accordingly, because now I will switch and your eyes are already used to the light background, so it will take a second for you to adjust. Maybe give it some time, turn your head around, something like that. I am giving you another second. Hopefully you are done. Let's switch to the dark one and have a look at this very quickly. So this is the dark theme. Maybe I should do this full screen so that I don't have the backgrounds of BSPWM and things of that nature. Again, what I said, let's start with the last point. As I said, the colors are fairly minimalist, even though I am always trying to achieve a very high contrast ratio, and this is what I do achieve. But the colors, as you can see, the differences between them are not too extreme, and whenever you see such differences, either it is a bug which I need to address, or there is some very good reason for it. But if you think there is a bug, you can of course tell me about it. I am open to suggestions of any sort, whether it concerns the color values or the mapping of colors to objects of the code syntax, whatever. Whatever kind of issue, you can bring it up, and it is subject to review, no problem about it. So yeah, this is a fairly minimalist difference between the colors. There is I try to have a subtle and constant rhythm with the perceived luminance that you see. So for example, this is not too bright and this one here too subtle. They are about the same in terms of luminance, so you don't so that your eye does not perceive sudden jumps in color as you are scanning through the code. Maybe we can go to Git, to the diff. What do we have here? Maybe open this. Okay, let's have a look at this. So you can see again the warm and the dark and the cool background and foreground. You can see the diffs. Obviously the diffs, because this is green and red backgrounds on a black backdrop, they are more intense, more pronounced, if you will. The effect is more pronounced because of the perceived difference, as I already mentioned. Again, as you move the hunks, you can see how they are highlighted accordingly. You can see that this changes to the white, the foreground value, whereas here it is a subtle green and a subtle red. Always though, even though it is a subtle green on a green background, the contrast ratio is always above 7:1, right? This is a constant. So that's basically it for these. I don't think there is a point to show you everything. If you want, you can try them via Quelpa, or you can wait a bit longer, or you can just download them manually and install them manually. I will link to everything in the description. Maybe the last thing, which I didn't pay too much attention when I was doing the light theme, but the last thing is the mode line. This is the mode line, the way I style it. All colors in the mode line, again, whenever you see a color in the mode line, it should always be the color combination of 7:1 or higher. But the mode line, basically, when it is the active mode line, it is drawn like this, whereas you can see, maybe if we can remove this so that we don't have too many colors. Let's do this again. Let's also do this like this. So you can see that which mode line has focus. The others have the more subtle mode line color, the inactive background and foreground, whereas this one uses the active background and the foreground. The same for the light theme, no need for me to go into that as well. I believe that's all for now, folks. I'm not sure if I missed something. So yeah, the idea is that I will continue to do videos on Emacs. There is lots of stuff to do, but first I want to finish the Modus Themes project, submit it to Melpa, and then I can focus on doing videos for Emacs. Also, this is not related to what I am doing in this channel, but I am preparing another publication that I will publish on my website, again under free Libre terms, as is everything that I publish on my website. But this is not related. I will publish it in the next week or so. But anyhow, I need to finish with these projects and then get back to doing video tutorials or something informative related to Emacs. If I find something truly awesome that I have never thought about before in BSPWM, I might do a video on that, but my idea now is to do no further video on BSPWM, unless of course something changes. So ceteris paribus, as we say, other things constant, I will be focusing on Emacs. Maybe the very last thing is that I could spawn a few terminals just to see that I am using BSPWM. So these are some terminals. I have not tweaked the colors for these because I seldom use them, but this is basically it, and I move around using Hyper and the Vim keys. So I am able to use the Vim keys. I don't get confused with this. Thankfully, I am fluent in both Emacs and Vim keys now, so I think that's great. And yeah, all the accoutrements of BSPWM, which I have showed before, no need to go into that. For the purposes of this demo, the very last thing, I was not using the lemon bar that I have, which is the system panel that I have. The program is called the lemon bar. I was not using it because, and I'm also not using it a compositor now, just to make it easier for the demo, as few processes as possible. I believe that covers it. That's all for now, folks. This has been an update on my channel and my outlook going into the immediate future. That's all for now. Maybe I can switch to a loud theme as well, so that you can see me one last time. No, don't worry about it. I don't want to stutter you again. That's all for now, folks. Goodbye.